we get to dive in and roll up our sleeves and really talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and what it takes to operate at a high level. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and I'm here with my main man, Dave Sivulich. We are coming to you with our Whisky Wednesday episodes, where we're going to talk about something that's going on in our world and here at the Vodyssey empire that we're starting to build, and then also what's going on in the short-term rental world, some trending topics. We always try to cover some of the very hot topics in short-term rentals right now, as well as answer some of your questions. And so you guys know, if you've been listening to us since we launched these Whisky Wednesday episodes, you can send in and submit your questions, and we're going to always answer a few at the end of every episode. So Dave, you've got all the questions, the topics, everything we're going to talk about. So let's dive in.
We just got back from Orlando. We had a nice about 4 days there. We had our annual, quarterly Vodyssey live event, and we had a lot of our members come, about 50 of our members, Vodyssey members come and spend a couple days with us. We had a social event, we had some networking, and then we really dove into some really, unique and hot topics in the short-term rental market for 2 days. And, I just thought we had a great event. I thought the people were awesome. They were super supportive, but excited to really dive into their short-term rental journey, and I'm glad we were able to be a part of it and give them some advice and do some of these. So let's just kind of talk about that. I guess you had a great time and
I had an awesome time. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do is be able to get face to face with people. We see so many times and working with so many people on Zoom and on the computers and on phones and everything else, and so it's really fun to get together live. We used to do larger events, and they started to grow as our Vodyssey family and network started to grow. And then we really dialed it back and said, hey, listen, we're going to cap these off at 50 people so that we can dive in and really get a chance to bring our team out and work with people. When you have 50 people in the room, it's a lot more intimate. You can get a chance to, everybody can get, we can do a lot more hot seats and get everybody involved as more of a true mastermind instead of a conference where everybody's just presenting. And that's what I really love about it is, we talk to our members that are there operating at a high level in the short-term rental space. The markets have been shifting around, a lot of chatter about the Airbnb game's over and everything else. And we just don't feel it in our room, right? You don't feel that when you're talking to people operating at a high level. We get to dive in and roll up our sleeves and really talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and what it takes to operate at a high level. And we hear all the time, like, hey, we love meeting the Vodyssey family, but when they learn just as much when you're masterminding with other people operating at a high level. And that's what I love about organizing and putting on those events. And so we had a great time in Orlando. We always take a chance to do a lot of networking. We're putting in long days though, right?
That's a lot of work.
But 13-hour days.
Feedback from the people and our members were, like you said, they loved the one-on-one attention. They felt like all of them got to spend one-on-one time with you. So that's huge. The other thing is we had a welcome kind of pool party when they first got there. They came out to our cabanas and we got the chance to meet everybody. So we kind of broke the ice and kind of introduced. Then we dove into two of the things that people really loved were the hot seats. Just questions that people could ask about their specific journey, their strategy, and we kind of just brainstormed and talked and gave them advice. And then the next day we split up into small groups. Depending on the journey that they were in, whether it was acquisition, setup and management, or marketing, they collaborated with each other. And I think that was one of the major, hits of the weekend as well, was being able to do some of that. And then, of course, we went and had some food and went bowling and had a sweet networking event as well. But I think that one of the best parts of the weekend was, and this is the first time we've done this, but we actually got everybody that was there, about 50, between 50 and 60 with all of us. We got on a big bus and we went to a neighborhood in Orlando to one of our member short-term rental properties that they just revamped and redid and created this amazing Disney experience. That was awesome. That was awesome. People loved that.
Yeah, we got a chance to, we brought in, we bring in our expert advisors, designers, photographers, all of our marketing experts, and they had been at that property setting that up.
Right.
And then, you want to talk about that, scaring the neighborhood. You roll into a neighborhood, we could barely fit that bus down the streets, and then 60 of us roll off the bus. But it was a really fun, logistically, I was a little nervous about it.
Yeah.
We pulled it off, and you guys did a great job organizing that. But it was really fun to go walk through a property that had really just started to implement a lot of the things that we take, we talk about, take advantage, or to take advantage and get our unfair share of business. And they really went in they went all out, right? Their property was called Orlando Dreams, and it's a 9-bedroom property that was about themed out as much as you could possibly imagine. And so it was a lot of fun to do an on-site like that and walk through, touch and feel how we bring a property to life, how our designers and the photographers are able to put this to, bring it to life without spending the amount of money you would think you would spend to put this together. And the budgets that they had to work with was, it's kind of mind blowing what they're able to do, and see it in person is way different than just seeing it on, it
was mind blowing. They were blown away with what they were able to accomplish in that home. And it was awesome. It was so much fun. So
tons of fun. Yeah. We just getting together live with people is fun. Being able to really rub shoulders and sit face to face, have conversations, and diving into some of the things that people are struggling with right now, and really being able to, sometimes it's nice when you're struggling to talk to somebody else who has been down that road and is a couple steps ahead of you. They went through some of the same challenges. They're a couple steps ahead of you, and they can share their experience with you, and it gives you that sigh of relief, okay, I can get through this. And we see that a lot as well when we're at those live events. And so that's
motivates
really fun.
them, gives them a little momentum after they leave. Everybody's excited. Now it's just a matter of kind of implementing the things that we talked about and the things that we've done. And it was exciting. I was glad we did it. I think, the feedback was amazing. So we'll stay tuned to when the next one is and kind of what the plan is moving forward with those. But really it's about supporting the members. And I know that's what we really focus on, is making sure they know we appreciate them, we love them, and that we want them to succeed. Right. So that's what we're all about.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Tiring, but fun. Sunday afternoon, by the time you get home, you're like, okay, I need a couple days of rest.
I thought about not coming in on Monday.
We put them to work. We started at 8 and got done at 8 or 9 at night. I mean, they were 12, 13 hour days every day. So
they were, and you got to be on your game. So, but it was fun.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear you say I wasn't going to come in Monday.
I was tired. I was like, I might sleep in a little bit, but I knew you would be here, so I had to come too.
All right, deal.
So we're good. Well, one of the trending topics that I think, let's kind of bat back and forth a little bit is insurance. Yeah. Insurance is, insuring your short-term rental property has become a little bit more challenging than it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. Yep. And I think people need to be aware of what that means and how to be proactive in making sure that they're going down a few different roads and really diving in. And you have some personal experience with just, you just went on a contract and now own a new home that you're, doing some updates and going to move in here in the next month or so. But, not only is it challenging for short-term rental, it's also challenging for your own personal home as well.
Yeah. Insurance is a really interesting topic when you're for home ownership across the board right now. Not even talking about just short-term rentals. A lot of insurance companies are pulling out of a lot of different markets. Insurance is skyrocketing in cost. If anybody is buying a property right now, they know that that's the case. If you own a property right now, you're probably going to get a notice in the mail that your insurance has gone up. And it's really frustrating. Insurance used to be a minor line item that we would look at on the expense line items as an investor. And it's become a real expense line item that can really affect your return on investment now, even if you can get it. And there's so many areas now and so many insurance companies now that are saying, hey, we're just flat out not insuring. That this is something that a lot of people are finding out at the 11th hour or after they're halfway through a deal. Frankly, we haven't really had to talk about that. When we talk about insurance, we say, hey, listen, it's really, really important to get short-term rental specific insurance, right? You need to be covered for a lot of additional coverages when you're short-term renting your property that a regular homeowner's policy is not going to cover you for. We've always talked about that. And those insurance policies are typically a little bit more money, but they're really comprehensive for the business that we're in. Because when it comes to liability, your first line of defense is a good insurance policy. Well, now homeowners insurance is, you got a lot of carriers saying we're not insuring in certain areas. We're not insuring certain types of houses. They're really pulling back, and it's really, really frustrating. It'll be interesting to see how this pendulum starts to swing, because I feel like it's really recently swung really far to one side of saying the insurance companies saying, hey, we're going to charge a crazy amount of money for insurance. And by the way, there's a lot of areas that we don't want to insure anymore.
And that's the thing too. So I think in the past, like you said, it's just a line item and you just expect it was no big deal. So I think the advice would be, as they go down this path of buying a home, make sure that they're running sideways, and equally important, looking at insurance options as well
before they get down the road.
Exactly.
Right? A lot of times a lot of times we look at our insurance options as just kind of a foregone conclusion that there's going to be an option. We're going to put it on our property. You really have to do that in the front end acquisition side of it to say, can I get insurance in the area I'm looking at? Wildfire areas, hurricane areas, those are two big areas that a lot of companies have pulled away from. But it's not just those areas. Right. The property we just bought, this was a personal primary residence that we bought. We're getting ready to close and they're like, hey, you can't get insurance. Who we wanted to get it through. Our insurance guy's like, hey, I don't have any options for you. You got to go outside of what we can offer. Finally found some. It was really expensive, and we're not in a wildfire area, and we're in a hurricane area. Right. But it had a pool. They were like, well, we don't like the diving board, and we don't like the slide. Yeah. And so it became uninsurable, not just more expensive. We literally had a hard time finding a carrier that would actually insure us. And so something to think about. And then as an investor, you don't want to get down the line and figure out that the insurance that you have to place on the property all of a sudden makes this a negative cash flowing property.
Yeah, exactly. It's equally frustrating with your own personal home. But if you're buying a short-term rental for, to make a profit and as an investment, and then the high cost of insurance changes the outcomes or your goals, make sure you're aware of that. Make sure you dive in. And that's why in our step 5 Vodyssey, master classes, we really dive into the data, really dive into the analytics and those worksheets and everything. So we understand and know before we even make an offer that we know what that potential is.
And really now with insurance, which we've had it kind of in step 5, we're moving it up to step 3 as you're selecting your market and property types that you reach out to the insurance carriers and say, hey, do you write policies in this area and this type of property that I'm looking at so that you're not running down the road too far. And so we're actually moving it up in our underwriting process as one of the first steps that we're looking, right next to that step of the very first step of, can I get licensing and permitting? And the next question is, can I get insurance? And can I get the appropriate insurance to operate as a short-term rental so that you know that you're okay, the area I selected is okay for this, because it can be, that's a really frustrating part of the process. And it is a really a very new development that we're seeing in the insurance side on of life. And so none of us like to see our insurance go up, but it can really affect your return on investment right now.
Yeah. So just be aware.
Absolutely.
Be super diligent. And
something to, we always say we want people walking into this game with their eyes wide open. That's one of those things on the front end that you want to make sure that you're paying attention to so that you don't get surprised when you're at the 11th hour.
Yeah. Well, let's take a couple questions.
Okay. Awesome.
First question here is from Jim. I like this one because I've actually, this has come up in our school community with our members a couple times over the last month or two. It says, how is the best way to handle neighbors that aren't supportive of short-term rental? So you buy a property in there, and a lot of them are in neighborhoods where you have normal, regular families just in the same neighborhood. And so you now come in, and I think they have some perceptions that, wow, this is going to be a party house, and there's going to be parties every weekend, and it's going to be crazy. And so how do you initially set that up to be a good neighbor if you own a short-term rental in those type of neighborhoods? Yeah,
it's really, really important because a bad neighbor, when you're trying to short-term rent, can really make or break your experience, your guest experience. And I mean, we've had members who have had a really bad neighbor and end up saying, hey, I'm done. I'm just selling it. I don't even want to deal with this. Even though they were fully licensed and permitted and everything else to operate, you have a neighbor that just does not want you there. It can be a big deal. Yeah. And so we try to be really proactive with neighbors and in the neighborhoods. One, we have to look at it from their point of view, is understand what they're thinking about. Like you said, they're thinking it's going to be a party house. They're thinking there's going to be people in and out all the time. They're living there. This is their neighborhood. They want a quiet, safe, nice place to live. And their kids are around. And so understand that they're already a little apprehensive of you coming in and a little bit probably not wanting you to be there as a short-term rental operator. And because of what their perception is. But that's not reality. Right. And what we really try to do is go out and introduce ourselves and let them know what the reality really is, right? We want to be a really good neighbor. We want people in that property treating it just like we would treat it as our own home, right? And so that's really important. And most of the time, that's who you get in your short-term rental. They're great people, great families. You wouldn't even know that they don't live there most of the time. Yep. And so we want to usually we go introduce ourselves to the neighbors when we're looking in an area especially by the time I go under contract. I usually don't do it until I'm under contract on a house, but we'll go introduce ourselves, shake their hands, say, hey, listen, we're buying this as a second home for ourselves. We love to use these properties in the meantime, when we're not here, we can't use it all the time. To help us supplement that, we will have some short-term renters coming in and out, but it's going to be on a very limited basis. We're very, very picky about who comes in here. We don't allow parties. We want them to treat it just like our home, just like your neighborhood. And we ask them for their help too. We say, listen, if there's ever any problem, here's my cell phone. Here's a way to get a hold of me. We're going to always have a full service property manager, however you're going to do it. Explain to the neighbor what you're doing, how important it is for us as an owner to keep that neighborhood, just like it is right now, and maybe even better. The people that we're looking at having to come in and out of our property are going to treat it just as good or better than we do. And a lot of times, 99% of the time, that takes their level of anxiety down, a bunch of notches. And they're like, hey, just knowing who owns the property, just knowing what our plans are, just knowing that we're not going to attract the party crowd in the way that we're going to market and advertise. It makes them feel really good. And people like to be involved too. They kind of become your watchdogs, if you will.
Yeah, they're going to be a huge proponent.
Yeah.
They're going to help you 10 times over if you set it up the right way. Communicate with them, talk to them, say hi. Now, it's not always perfect. They may not always be great, but at least you're doing your best to try and introduce yourself and introduce the strategy behind your short-term rental. So, and
if you'll be able to read right out of the gate when you're, even under contract during your inspection periods, if they're going to be okay with it, right? If they're going to be really resistant to you coming in, even after that conversation, you might want to rethink. That's like going through an inspection and having something wrong with the property.
It's still going through with it.
And saying, hey, I don't know, there's times where we do an inspection and we back out of properties because the plumbing's bad or the sewer's bad or there's a roof leak or whatever, and we can't resolve it. If we got a neighbor who just doesn't want us there, sometimes we might not want to pick that fight all the time, right? And so is it always perfect? No, but 99% of the time, that conversation and communicating with your neighbors is going to really satisfy their anxiety and bring it down a whole bunch and say, okay, listen, I really like my neighbor. I really like that they were proactive in coming over here. I appreciate that. I've got their numbers. And so I'm not worried about it. Let's work together. Most of the time, that's the road you're going to run down.
No, that's good. Okay. All right. Second last question here from Jerry. Do you suggest having cable TV, like a DirecTV or Comcast or something like that? Or does a smart TV suffice?
So, Jerry, it's one of those things, like I always look and think about major events, sporting events. So my advice a couple years back was, you probably need some basic cable or some local, so you can get local TV so you can watch the major events, major sporting events. Now, with smart TVs and some of the apps like YouTube TV, and you got Amazon Prime TV, all those, they have Hulu, they've got live TV, Peacock, live TV. So you can get away with smart TVs and have a subscription that gets you access to some of the local channels, basically your major network channels, so that you can watch the major events, the Super Bowls, the Masters golf tournament. Most of the time, it's those live events or major sporting events. When people are on vacation, when that stuff's going on, they want to watch that. Right. And so I do think that it is important to have that. Nowadays, like I have most of my properties have cable TV on it or satellite so that we can get basic cable, right? And then we have their smart TVs. People can access their Netflix or whatever they want to watch for movies. My most recent property that we set up, it just has a smart TV, and we did YouTube TV, and it's awesome. We can watch all the games. They can access everything. And we don't have to, and we didn't have the option for cable in this area. And so it was really the only option we had, and it works out awesome. And so I lean more toward now, whatever you're most comfortable with, whatever you want to have access, but it's important for your guests to have access to live TV. If you're going to have TVs, you can have some properties that are completely.
If it's not set up for, maybe it's a wilderness experience or out in nature.
You're disconnected, recharging, something like that. Or, TVs aren't going to be a big deal. But most of the time, if you're going to have the TVs in there, you want to have or allow people to watch local channels or the major, so you can watch the major events because they're going to typically be on. But nowadays, a lot of your major events aren't even on the local channels. I know, right? They're on the, depending on who paid to have the Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. They're all on different channels. Thursday Night Football's on Amazon Prime now. I mean, it's a lot of these events are not on just like the regular
channels.
NBC, CBS, and Fox, right?
Well, and
they're going to be outside of that.
With our family, we have ESPN Plus, we got Disney Plus, we got Paramount, we got Hulu.
You can overdo it.
I mean, we got all these things. So I'm like, we'll be fine when we go. But I do think a lot of people, it's kind of 50-50. I do think more people are going to the smart TV because they have Netflix and they have all that. But I think it's good to communicate that.
Yeah, you let them know what you have. Absolutely.
And make sure they know. If you don't have TVs and if you don't have that, then you should make sure they know, because most people expect, when I go to a place, I'm going to lay in bed and watch the news, or I want to watch the ball game or college football or whatever that is. I think it's super important to communicate that in your listing and make sure they know, so that they're going, again, with their eyes wide open and what to expect going on.
And if you're going to go with the smart TVs, make sure you've got high enough internet speed, download speeds, that you're not buffering all the time. But we've run into that on properties where like, I'm just going to go with the smart TV, but then they have basically freaking DSL or dial-up, and you're like, it doesn't work, right? You've got to have... You got to have good internet speeds to pull that off.
They got AOL.
You hear
noise?
Hey, hopefully those people listening are like our age and they understand that.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Well, good, buddy. Well, that's what we got for today, man. I appreciate it. Good event. Good things going on. Super
fun
excited.
In Orlando. Good to be back in action and getting these questions sent in. So those of you listening, we always appreciate your time. We know your time is the most valuable thing that you have, and spending it with us is important. And so if you have questions for us that are about the short-term rental world and you want us to answer them on one of the next episodes, make sure you submit them in to us. You can always email them, support@vodyssey.com, or you could submit them as a DM on whatever platform channel, if it has that option that you're listening to this on. And so at the end of every episode, you guys know I leave you with 2 challenges. One, if you have got any value out of this, you think anybody else would like this, please share it, like it, and if you have more than 30 seconds, leave us a review. Those things do help us to spread the word and share the show with those other people that are not in our Vodyssey world yet, and we hope that they will be. And that final and last thing that I always challenge you with, and is the most important, is to go pick one thing that you can do today to start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, buddy.